Okay, the neophyte may acquire this immunity from the effect of the emotional rhythm by focalizing on his will when he is adversely threatened by the emotional feeling. Let me get this, straighten this out again here. Let's get this sorted out with repetition. The neophyte may acquire this immunity from the effect of emotional rhythm by focalizing on his will when he is threatened adversely by the emotional feeling. He will acquire a mental knack, let's call it, of rising above the plane of emotional feeling or to the plane of will, and there calmly watching and observing the storm of emotion without being influenced by it. It is like one sailing in a balloon above the storm clouds, which are thundering and flashing lightning beneath it. On the plane of will, there is peace and power, undreamt of by those still on the emotional plane. Okay? But this immunity to rhythmic emotion does not come to the neophyte all at once. It is a matter of time, practice, growth. It is aided by the steady practice of refusing to take the emotional swing too seriously. Again, it is aided by the steady practice of refusing to take the emotional swing too seriously. Refuse to admit it as being yourself. Deny always its reality, in that sense. See and think of it always as something connected with your mental being, but not in any way, not in any real way, yourself. No. Stand aside and watch the play of your emotional nature, and before long, you'll be able to laugh at its antics. You'll see how essentially unreal it is when compared with the mental life on the plane of will. Once even partially freed from the bondage of emotion and feeling, you will never willingly return to the old thraldom. This does not mean that you should never use your emotional nature. Remember, instruments of expression, instruments of experience, instruments of action. On the contrary, you will find it advantageous to play out the part often. Play out the part often, for the energy aroused by the emotions are strongly motive and will enable you to accomplish much if it is properly applied. Motive. Without motive, how do you have interest in affairs? Without something, interest enough to drive your attention in a, point your attention in a certain way, and without doing that, then how do you get anything done? You have to be able to attend to it mentally. There must be enough emotional content in your goals for you to have interest in action toward their ends, toward their instantiation, toward their manifestation, toward bringing them to bear in your life. That's motive, emotive. There must be emotion in there. Okay, so that's what this says. Remember, always never allow yourself to become enmeshed and involved in the emotional storms or activities. The energy aroused by the emotions are strongly motive, but don't become enmeshed and involved in the storms of it all. Handle the emotions as a master does an instrument, but never yield yourself up to your emotions as a passive slave or instrument, any more than you would yield yourself up to the power and influence of some entity outside of yourself. Now, This is an important point I want to make. This channel there are two sides, two phases of its one main thrust. The one side is awareness of consciousness hijacking and perception deception, which is both of which are perpetrated upon human beings' consciousness and life cycles here on this planet. Galore. And we want to move away from that stuff. On the other hand, by the same token, or the other side of the coin, the other phase, the other aspect is establishment of true selfhood, self-mastery, and personal evolvement. All right. Consciousness hijacking and perception deception. We do that to ourselves somewhat. Yeah, sure. And there are a lot of outside influences that would do it too. In fact, they use the word entity outside of yourself. Well, that can refer to things in the empirical world, the objective world, as well as objects not empirical. In other words, any plane, entities, just outside influences. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. Interesting that it points that out here. Handle the emotions as a master does an instrument, but never yield yourself up to your emotions as a passive slave or instrument, any more than you would yield yourself up to the power and influence of some entity outside of yourself. And I'm going to say here, all of us are much more under the power and influence of entities outside of ourselves than we would like to know. But it's a pretty good idea to become aware of it. Our antidote to such things here, well, we're getting at it here. This is one way into that, to discussing that antidote. That wasn't exactly the stated purpose of this series of videos, but it certainly is an important aspect of what we're getting at here. Antidotes. That's one of the things about this, the whole points of this channel, right? Not just saying, hey, wake up, we're getting hijacked, our consciousness is pretty hijacked, but providing antidotes to that. And here we are. Any more than you would yield yourself up to the power and influence of some entity outside of yourself. Well, you might not will to do that, but it happens. You have to play your part in the world, a part which is as much of a character as that assumed by the actor. And in order to play it well, you will find it necessary to throw into it feeling and emotion. Yes, just as the actor throws these into his part. But the best actor always maintains the basic knowledge that he is merely acting, and his emotional activity is merely the result of previous thought and trained art. Art! In the management of the emotion. Consistent selecting the emotional activity adapted to the accomplishment of the task or the work in hand, and the restricting of all other emotions. Listen. Didn't I said in the first video in this series something about to live life artfully, to engage in the art of living? Rhythm must be considered. And here, this is probably the last video in the series, and it turns up right here again. Art in the management of the emotion. Consistent selecting the emotional activity adapted to the accomplishment of the task at hand. All right. This involves the law of rhythm, as is the whole topic here right now. Okay. Instead of being a blind tool, and instrument of the emotional nature, you should use the latter rationally, selecting that which is desirable and helpful, and restraining the rest. By the way, restraint is one of the most important features of action of will. It's a phase of will operation. Restraint. We often don't think of that because we think of will as something pushing outward. So we rarely think of that will working in a way of restraint. But one of the best ways to train your will, to strengthen your use of the power of will, is to practice restraint in affairs. Well, here we're talking about restraint now for a moment. Selecting that which is desirable and helpful and restraining the rest. Be aware always of the reaction and return swing of the emotional pendulum of rhythm. When it swings back from the desirable emotion, then do you then mount to the plane of will? Huh? And from there view it smilingly and with equanimity? Take what you want. Neutralize the rest. Take what you want. Neutralize the rest. Take what you want. Neutralize the rest. I think we're going to conclude our series on the law of rhythm and how to use it right now. I've gone on 23 minutes. That's the longest video in this series. Could have made it 2, making it a series of 10 videos, but I didn't do that. So, anyway, hope you made it through here. Did you like the video? Remember to give it a thumb up. I'm Turk Strongman at the Rank Ramatragam. Go be well.